guys ready to watch the game?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Gate with Dustman and Nate. I'm Dustman, and with me, as always, my buddy Nate.
What's up, everybody? Y'all know me here. And today, on this episode, we're going to get to meet Jeremy.
Jeremy Kaht, man.
Yeah.
How's it going, fellas?
Yeah. How you doing today, man?
I am doing amazing. Magnificent, to be specific. How are you guys?
Good.
Man.
Good.
Doing?
Good. It's wonderful to have you here.
I am actually grateful that you guys asked me to do this. I've known both of you for quite a long time. It's a really cool thing, and I'm stoked that you asked me to do it. So,
Oh yeah,
cool.
we had you in thought, right? As soon as we started this, we had a bunch
Even
of people.
better.
Yeah,
Even better.
Right. So, well, let's get to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and run up and just start with your name, sponsor, all that.
So, Jeremy Kaht. I've been riding for Standard bikes for a long time. I mean, 19, 20 years old was the first time I started riding for them. I'm fortunate enough to still get some help from Profile and Fly Racing, even though I'm not actively on the track all the time these days.
Right.
That about runs down, the list of the sponsorship type stuff.
Sweet.
Yeah. And where are you from? Where are you?
I am originally from Lake County, Illinois, Waukegan, but for the last 15 years or so, I've lived in Kenosha County. I'm out in Salem these days. So,
Okay. Sweet.
And what class are you racing for everyone that doesn't know you?
These days, because I just cracked into level 4.2, I'm in the 41 to 45 expert class. That was like one of the hardest things ever, is to have an expert membership after years of having a pro membership.
Yeah. And how long did you race pro for?
I'd say like 15 years. I started racing pro when I was 19. And then so maybe 16 years, like 35, 36 is when 35 was kind of when I hung it up and started taking an expert card again.
Yeah.
Stopped donating my money.
Right. And then how many years fully have you been riding?
That's crazy. I literally, that's the only thing I thought about on my drive out to see you guys. It's like, man, when did I actually? So I started racing in the winter of 91. So I was like 11, 12 years old, and I was just riding, around the street in a couple little, ditch jumps and stuff that we had in the neighborhood for like the whole year and a half or so prior on my Diamondback.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, what got you into BMX all those years ago?
Actually, so I am from Lake County, and there's a really good bike shop there that still carries quite a bit of BMX stuff. They're not as good as they were before. It was Zion Cyclery. It used to be a Schwinn dealer. And I used to go in there all the time, and they had flyers for Elkhorn racing. And my buddy Ryan, that I'm not really close with anymore, Ryan Dillo, and his father has since passed away, but his dad took us to our very first race. It was at Elkhorn, man. It was one race and pretty much hooked from there on out. You know what I mean? I've been in some way, shape, or form involved ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you just talked about your first race, and how did you do in your first race? You remember?
It wasn't bad. I got fourth. I got fourth overall. If I'm sure about it, if I remember the picture with the trophy, but I could probably dig it out.
Still got that. Got that trophy. Huh?
I think I got the picture. The trophy's long gone, but I think my mom probably has the picture. Not a very hot outfit either. I think the pants are purple with some kind of black shirt. Something that I wouldn't rock these days.
That was her fault though. She's the one that dressed.
Yeah.
My mom and dad did the same thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, at some point, she was like, "All right, go on and head out like that."
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, I got some pretty funny pictures from back in the day.
Yeah.
Man. Some really funny.
Yeah, definitely. And the color schemes too, you know. All the neons and all that old stuff back in the 80s, 90s stuff.
Yeah, them were the days.
Yeah. They gone.
Yeah, back when I rocked I think Ninja Turtle flat pedal shoes,
get some.
Dude,
Hey,
for
they were
sure.
flat pedal shoes. so
Yeah, so
I'll bring that up now because I know we're going there.
right.
We will get there.
Yes,
for
yeah.
sure. So, how was it moving up through the classes back in the days? How did you take to it?
I am old, but if I remember correctly, it was like 3 wins to turn intermediate back in the day, and it was 10 to turn expert, but it had to be 10 wins in a calendar year. You couldn't just accumulate them forever until you got 20 of them or whatever it is now. I couldn't even tell you. But I was novice for a little bit. I turned intermediate fairly quick. I mean, within the second season, maybe the end of the first season. But I was intermediate for quite a few years. Like, I turned expert when I was 14, almost 15, I think. So it took a couple. But when I turned expert, we had come back to the winter season at the barn. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
We came back to the barn and I won my first 10 races that year and turned expert and went from there. So
Yeah.
Back to that home track that you first set the bike on.
Yeah. I wasn't really into any racing outside of at home, and when it came to summer, I did a lot of other stuff that wasn't always racing, but winter, like racing it was life in the winter, you know what I mean? As hot as that is in the Midwest when it's covered in snow, but it's like, it's what I did, and like it came back, and that year it just kind of like flipped. I felt good on the track, I was comfortable on the bike, and it all went together, and then going from there is a whole nother.
Right. And then you ended up doing some nationals, like as an expert, right?
Oh yeah. Lots of years racing nationals as expert. I like from a local standpoint, there doesn't race anymore, but Mark Hildebrand was somebody that I always did a lot of chasing around. He was that little step above me, and Frank Felici was a little out there. So there was these guys locally that I seen what they were doing, and it got me a little more involved to start doing the traveling out there. And at first that was an eye opener, from turning expert and doing well expert and like, at your local track and doing okay. And then you hit those nationals the first time and it's like, okay, let me take a step back. Like, I just kind of got my butt. I mean, I made a main, but I got my butt handed to me. Like, what is the dude that got first doing, and what do I need to do to get where that is? Because it's like, it's a whole nother level. It was very eye opening at the time. I remember that very specifically. My first national as expert was just like,
almost like getting right into the expert class again, all over again, huh?
Yes, it was literally like turning intermediate to expert again. That's a very thing, because even though you're still just racing expert, it is a whole nother level of racing when you really talk about national circuit.
And then since you said you were like, man, I need to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
What did you decide to do to try to like match them and keep up with everyone? How did you train?
So for me, it's always been the biggest thing is just being comfortable on my bike. So that's like first and foremost. I was making sure that I rode all the time, even though I did some trail riding at the time, not like I did later on, but I had got to that point where I had 2 bikes. I had them both feeling the same. So I always made sure that I was comfortable. And the other one, as odd as this sounds, because I never did any like real training. I was very anti a lot of stuff. I did 30 push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups 3 times a day. And I did sprints, which I just despise, you know what I mean? And back to the flat pedal again, you know what I mean? It's like somewhere in that we're getting to the point where the world changes, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's, if I could tell anybody anything, it's your core is the biggest, your core and sprints is the biggest components, you know what I mean? You're gonna be comfortable on your bike, but if you really want to take that level and be faster, it's a lot of core, and you're never gonna get it without doing sprints, let's face it.
Right.
You can pussyfoot around it all you want, but you're not getting nowhere without doing sprints. So.
Right. Yeah.
So at my best, that's what I was doing as an amateur.
Yeah.
So, when you were starting to race the nationals as an expert, who was your sponsors then?
I started nationals. I went to a couple races with my stepdad. He took me to my first couple of nationals, and along the way, being local, I had met Joe Wilczek, who has since passed away. He started to put me on Cheyenne, and their team back in the day was like locally the team to be. It was borderline a factory team. He put me on their little flow program for nationals, which was like amazing as a young teenager. You know what I mean? He basically, as long as I placed in races, he had a scale that he paid you back for your entry fees. So,
Sweet.
and that in itself, liking the nationals and liking the extra competition, and then getting involved with Joe, Joe and Jan, his whole family. I mean, I'm grateful to everything they did for me, but that propelled me into wanting to pursue racing at a whole nother level. Like, because growing up, I mean, I'll be brutally honest, I couldn't afford to pay to take myself to nationals. Like, I literally traveled the world, the United States racing, but because of the Wilczek family, you know what I mean? So
Right. And I do.
Cheers to them.
I remember that team.
It was great. It really was. It like, do you have any factory sponsors? I'm like, yeah, that's great. I do now. But like, did you? Like, man, I had better than a factory sponsor in the era when factory sponsors were big, basically. So it was very cool. It helped me a ton as a kid.
Right. So when you turned expert, I know a lot of people have a problem with, not really doing so well, and they tend to quit. So, I mean, what would you do, or give anybody some advice to keep on going and do good in that class?
This is great. Dream big and be bold. You know what I mean? You gotta, if you have that little bit of desire, and if it's even semi-burning, you have to chase those things while you can, because the only thing all of us is promised is an exit from this joint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So would you rather go down not, you know what I mean? Like, not have taken the chance and really trying? So you almost have to gut up and really go for what you want. And some of that is going to be literally knowing what you want and deciding what you're willing to give up in order to get what you want. Because like, we've all got the same 24 hours, so you're going to have to sacrifice something in your day to do the things that you need to do to get to that next level that you want. Right. And it really, it's a commit thing, you know what I mean? It really is. But know what you want and decide what the heck you're willing to. Like, dang, man, I'm not going to go, eat burgers, or I'm not going to go ride over here, at the skate park, because I'm going to really train to ride. But you've got to really have a burning desire for it and go for it.
Right. Because, I mean, novice people come in and they just, some people, I mean, a lot of people come in and just start winning right away.
Yeah.
So they expect that when they go to the next level.
Yeah.
And it don't happen. I mean, it might happen intermediate, some like maybe,
sometimes.
But it's like, once they get to expert, that's where a lot of people are just like, I'm done.
And I think a real hard thing is I think some people, when you have to, I hear Brian Underwood say this, fail forward. You have to take those losses and learn from, how the heck did I just lose that race, and take that as a learning experience and go forward from it. So, you know what I mean? You can't take some people allow the failures to take the fun out of what they're doing, as opposed to looking at it as a learning experience, I suppose. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of drug out of it, a couple hard losses in a row, and they, you know what I mean? It just, you lose that fun aspect, but you've got to take that next step and have learned from what you did. Otherwise you're just going to be stuck in the same rut.
Right. So just try to have fun still.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a big thing. When you start losing the fun, though, every time that I've ever taken a break from riding or racing or anything of the sort, it's always been at a point where I was just like, man, for whatever reason, it isn't feeling fun right now. And you take that little step back, and whether like racing and going riding other stuff, then you come back, you have that burning passion again, and it makes it, having that burning desire makes the fun a lot more present than what you're doing. You know what I mean?
And what is it that draws you back to the sport? What is it that keeps that desire burning? What's that drive? What's it for you?
I really I like the competition. I do. I've always been a semi-competitive person, and that's what draws me back, because no matter how much I ride, and I ride way more than I race these days, but no matter how much, and how long I've been away. It's always that little, like, and no matter how much beef I got with racing sometimes or whatever's going on, it's like, man, that's the thing I miss the most is lining up in the gate with the people that are my peers and like, let's throw it out on the line and have a good time and see who's the quickest today. It just always puts a smile on my face. And when it stops, that's when you stop. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's definitely one of my favorite things about the sport. I love the competition, battling with the homies, hanging out, and just
and pushing each other. Really, you know what I mean? And especially from a local aspect. For a while there, the local thing had got lost in the ether, if you will. Like everything was really national. And don't get me wrong, I still think there's too many nationals, but it's become a lot more local again as a sport, and that's where a lot of the growth happens because like I know a lot of people and I have lots of friends from racing all over the place, but the people that have pushed me and made me a better rider are all the people that I rode with on a regular basis at home.
Yeah.
All I did was take the lessons that I learned from those races and then went and exerted what I learned at a national to make those moves that happened to me on other people. You know what I mean? So it just having good local people is always a better push. You know what I mean? Because you're always pushing with each other, whether they're the same age or not. You know what I mean? It's a lot more community, family.
Right. And even when you go to a big race and you see them people, it's like you automatically are just drawn to them. Like,
oh yeah.
Where I don't know anybody. It's like, dude, so definitely.
Yeah. It's like I love our local scene that like we get to train together, like just like you're talking about, like that's what we're experiencing right now. It's an amazing part of BMX.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, so we started from expert. What made you, or how long did it take for you to turn pro, and what actually made you think that it's time to turn pro?
This is odd. Like I actually took a break before I turned pro. I turned pro at like 19 years old, almost 20. And right out of high school, I decided I'm out of high school. I don't need to live at home. I moved in with a friend and at his mom's place. I rented their basement from him, all these things. And it just like, it's going to make me want to race more. And it basically made me do nothing, and then my great grandmother had passed away and my stepfather owned their house. And he's, why don't you take it? You guys can rent it. You can rent to own, you can do something, but you can get your own place. Me and my girlfriend moved into it. And I turned pro from there forward. So there was this weird little hiatus there, but I think it was almost better because it's back to something I said before. And those little breaks have always made me have more fun, have a better drive or a burning desire. So I was gone and then I went to a couple of local practices and then it was like, what am I screwing around with? Like, I've been doing this for this long. You might as well do it and see what you really got while the time is right, because nobody can race at that high level. I don't care single A or double A. You can't race at that high level forever and still constantly compete or even be in the competition. You know what I mean? So I went ahead and did it, and it was an experience at first. A Pro was definitely a lot different. The clipless era was coming along, but the biggest thing for me was pro sections weren't mandatory for single A pro. And I don't have enough fingers and toes to count out the number of semi main events that I got 5th place in because I was the only person out of 8 people in my gate or the other 8 people in the other semi, the only person to hit the pro section. Like it just, I had this weird rub, man. I used to sit in the stands for the ones that I didn't, that I like missed it by a hair, and I would wait until they got silent at nationals right before the cadence would start for A Pro, and I would just scream, hit the pro section. A couple times they even, somebody from the ABA would come over and tell me, you can't be saying that, they're trying to do their race, and it rubbed me weird. But at the same time, it made me train in other ways to get better in aspects so that I could still do that and get into the main. Granted, doing the pro section when nobody else is doing it, I'm already putting myself at a disadvantage because I'm not going to win that lap unless I'm clipped in. I mean, let's face it.
Right.
But yeah, lots of years of racing pro, man.
Yeah.
Always single A, close to double a couple of times, but never really wanted that. So
I mean, I'd say probably my favorite ever watching was watching you guys at Elkhorn, man. Like back in the day, it was
dude.
like
I'm really glad you bring that up because I mean we've already talked about Elkhorn and it's gone now and it really saddens me. But like in my era when we turned pro, and I say we because there were so many local fast dudes that were all within 5-10 years up or down age of each other, right? In this group, and we had 3-4 racks of single A pros at a tiny little barn that. I mean, we would have 100 motos in there on a little double pointer. I mean, assholes and elbows, and we had huge pro races there. I made so much cash racing. Thank you, Jake, racing a pro at Rockford in the barn.
Yeah.
I mean, we had huge classes and double, triple pointers there. I mean, we'd have 16. We had more riders at some Elkhorn triple pointers than national single A pro turnouts.
Yeah.
Like we had more riders locally than when I would go to show up at some nationals for single A. It's like it was very good because it's such a tight little track.
Yes.
And everybody was so close to the same speed. So it really made you learn to ride small but ride big, you know, if that sounds crazy, but people that race understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it also made you understand that you can ride in the pack. Like there's no choice at Elkhorn but to ride. I mean, 8 dudes into that out of that gate, at least 4 of us are going straight elbow to elbow into a turn that makes a 180 to the right, and there's only room for like 2 of us. It made you learn how to, and that helped tons from riding nationals, you know, because I would get in a corner situation in a first turn at a national where, you know, people would bump and get out of the way. And it's like, you can just keep leaning into me. Like we do this all the time at home. Like, that doesn't bother me. You know, it really, racing Elkhorn with the big class that we had, and I could list names and names and names, that made my national riding that much better. I mean, it was that was as important as training in itself. The lap time that I got with all those dudes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So like in my whole career, bro, like literally that was the best to watch. Like 8 dudes that were, you know, like he said, the same speed going into a turn. It's only gonna take 2.
For real.
Yeah, that's all it is.
It was wild every single time because you never knew who was gonna win. Dude, like it was never like one person out there killing it. It was like
it was never necessarily the gate that somebody was in, you know, like 8 or 1.
Wild.
It just, I mean, it was full throttle. You could not half step on the front straightaway. And it sounds crazy to say that about a first straight that was like 500 feet long.
Here to the kitchen.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Honestly.
but you had to get in probably the fastest 4 or 5 pedals that you ever will at any track, or else you're just going to lose. You're going to be back you're going to be shot out the back like a toy.
That was awesome. Right?
Yeah.
So, what should I say? Fuck. And we try again.
Yep, that's all right.
Do you want me to press play and then
No,
press
you're
it
good.
again?
We're good.
Yeah. So, when did you get hooked up with standard?
My standard riding, so as a young kid at like 16, 17, I had bought a standard when standard first came about in the early 90s. I had one for a while. I had a motocross, and then as I talked about the Cheyenne thing, we had different bike sponsors and stuff, and I, just rode whatever we had. I started getting hooked up with standard as I didn't have a sponsor with Cheyenne when I first started coming back and was about to race pro. And Nate Schaefer, who is a very good friend, we don't talk tons these days, but like I will 100% always credit Nate for a lot that has to do with me. Rick had told everybody that their factory riders, which Nate was one of them, they were getting new bikes before Grands. They were going to be gray with red forks. It's the OG, what you think of the factory standard colors. And Nate had just had this new frame like 3 months earlier. And he asked Rick, could he, I knew somebody that needed a bike. Could I give this bike to him? And he told him, go ahead. And from that point forward, I originally had little, deals with Rick. He would, give me incentive, I'd get if I needed a new bike or something along those lines, and he'd help me out, or I'd sell something that he had, a bike that I had got from him to give him a little bit. And I've always sold bikes for him and always promoted since that day forward. I mean, I've been riding a standard since I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I'm 42. So more than half of my life, I've literally just bled SPC. So, shout out to Rick also. I mean, Rick and Jess they're like family. They've always treated me like I've never left, even though I disappeared from the racing scene, if you will, for months at a time or a year at a time. It's always like I'm still just part of the family. So
yeah. And you want to tell everyone what kind of pedals you had on that bike?
Aside from a really short stint where I was forced to try, I've always ridden flat pedals.
Yeah.
I was around for the clipless thing to happen. Mike King and Lopes and a couple other dudes at Grands one year all had clipless pedals on, and from there forward, the entire face of what we know as BMX evolved from that day forward. It changed a lot of things, and it took time for all of it to happen. You know what I mean? But flat pedals is where it's at, in my opinion. We can argue until we're blue in the face, and we can go back and forth, and we're all still friends at the end of the day. But it's a skill, in my opinion, to know how to have a regular pedal on and actually spin a circle. Like everybody out there can ride a bike and chop wood, man. Like, don't get me wrong, you can go fast and do that. You can put clipless pedals on and basically eliminate that whole learning process of learning how to go like this in a circle.
Right.
Once you can figure out how to go in a circle, you can keep your momentum a lot better. You can get onto your acceleration points a lot better coming out of turns. In my opinion, clips are just the cheater's way to get there, if you will. Like, don't get me wrong, now that they've done it, they understand how that motion is, but they didn't take the time to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and having clipless pedals, you wouldn't be able to do like John Pearce did that one time. His shoe fell off in the first time. And you remember that? It was
do.
like Costa Rica or something like that.
I do.
And his shoe fell off, and he ended up getting the pro set with his shoe off, bro. And with some like bear claws, like
this is no joke. I have Mike Caldwell has video of this somewhere, and I've seen it recently in the last couple of years. I never owned a cruiser of my own. I used to race Billy Oz cruiser at nationals. In '96, I won Gold Cup on 20-inch, but on cruiser in Gold Cup that year, coming out of the first turn, I blew off a shoe and finished out the whole race and got third place on just this gnarly cage pedal.
Right.
Got third place still with only one shoe on.
Just
man.
yeah, you definitely ain't doing that with no clip pedal.
No.
That would be hurting. I think I'd rather take
Take the L.
Pulling over. Go get my shoe.
Yeah, I need that.
Right.
That's some baby feet.
Yeah, that was wild stuff back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you got any good pro highlights from your career?
I mean, as a pro, I did lots of years of racing pro. I made top 15 a couple of years, top 10 in NBL 1 year. Aside from that, lots of really good battles and no podiums. Like always, lots of fourth places, but mustered, close to double A at least once, which is something that I never something that I actually wanted to do. As an amateur, I had a couple top 10 plates, back when nag plates were real nag plates and they only had 10 numbers, not 20. Nah, I'm just pulling a leg. I mean, it's a nag plate is a nag plate, and that's accomplishment regardless. But back in the day, because I'm
it was a lot harder.
It was pretty hard to grab a nag plate, and it's
Definitely.
But still, at the same time, it's hard to grab one now, and to grab one, even though we're busting Nate's chop, to grab one like that's hard in itself. But you also you had a goal that you got right here, and the future is one that's got a 1 and a 0 or a single digit on it. So you have a future goal to shoot for, and you got to drive for it. You know what I mean?
And that, last year was my first year I actually traveled and raced nationals.
Yeah.
So it was
Oh yeah, it's cool. Definitely cool.
Yeah, we're bringing him along. He's getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a pro, most of my most memorable battles were with the dudes that we talked about earlier in Elkhorn, and I'll throw some names out there just because we're talking, and I've already talked about Nate. But the Mangler, you guys obviously know, you ride for George. Me and George have battled a lot. We never rode as amateurs, but as pros, we've raced each other a lot and had some really good battles. Joey Bippus, Chris Lundgren, James Carter, Dale Hoagland Jr. was a pro for a while when we were racing back there. I'm like drawing a blank at some of these names. There's so many other people that were.
Tillman.
Oh, Mighty Mo was still racing pro when we were there.
Yeah.
Mike Gull, Mark Melton.
Yeah.
Like, it is I can't explain the value that having those people to race with at the time did for me when it was time to race nationals.
Yeah.
It made the whole experience that much better, and knowing that, like, man, I got these dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just banged with these cats, you know what I mean? We just got elbow to elbow. I got this when it comes to national time. So, like I said, lots of years of racing, never any podiums, sadly. I can own up to that, but lots of fourths.
Yeah. So besides racing, like you said, you ride all sorts of other stuff. Let's just get one quick question. Where's your favorite place to just ride?
I don't have my own trails that I build at anymore. And our other local spot, Willow, which was very fun, is now sadly gone. But my all-time favorite place to ride is Posh Woods. Our trails, Verco was there for about 20 years. Posh is 7 years going on now. I've been going there for at least a solid 20. It's one of those places, like the last time I was there, I hadn't been there in a full year, and the laps on the lines feel like I was there yesterday. It's like it is my own spot. No matter how long I'm away from it, and there's other really great spots in that area. Caddy is very fun as well, but Posh is that place that it's like my happy place. If there was one, like, man, I could just ride laps there until my arms fall off.
I've never been there.
I have not either.
I've been there through YouTube. My wife is, oh my god, if I put on a Posh video, she's gonna probably throw up. Because I've watched too many of them. Oh yeah, dude, she knows every single one like by heart, bro, for sure. Like
they have a process. They've been doing it for a really long time, and everything is just so artful when you get out there and ride so smooth. And like, hats off to those dudes, because I know a couple of those dudes personally, like Jay Lonergan, for instance. I'm 42. Jay's older than I am, and he's like one of the main dude there. Mm-hmm. Brian Coleman's getting up there as well. Brian's a kid from Wheeling that has made his way to California and ended up on the East Coast and is now one of the main locals. But they have something that we always missed when it came to trails here, and that was like a younger generation getting involved in it. Like, you guys have trails out here, and you had stuff, but like where I was, that was like the fatal fall to our spot. And it's cool to see, like, Jay and those guys. They had Chris Stauffer is a big name in the trail riding world, and Chris was a great rider, and he was part of Posh, and he comes back and rides now. But what's really cool, and I've got the witnesses, his younger brother, Soft Jr., is like part of the game, and he's one of the main people at this place that his brother started. And it's cool to, just like as a family type thing, even though it's not the racing thing where I think it's family, but trails is just the same thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's definitely a trail family as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we've talked about it on this show. You got to ride everything.
Yeah, you have to. And that's like, I would, my entire pro career, I'll put in quotes, because, like, let's face it, it's just racing and having fun. You know what I mean? I wasn't shooting for no number one titles, but all of the years that I was the best and on the top of my game are the years that I was constantly riding the trails every chance that I got. And then I was making the sacrifices and little things to do the little training or sprint things. But the important thing to me was riding all the time. And that's what made the difference on the track, because you're always comfortable. Your bike always feels like it's supposed to be under you, as opposed to, I've been dicking around all week. I just got here. Let's jump on this thing and it's time to race. It just, it made the difference for me. I think could I have trained more and done other things? Sure. Absolutely. Would it have been fun? Sure. It still probably would have been fun. But at the same time, I'm really grateful that I got into riding when I did, because it made me appreciate the racing that
Right.
much more, but it also made me, it made my skill level exponentially go on a rise to where I was actually had the real skill on the track where I felt comfortable and I knew I could make moves when I had to make them. You know?
Yep. Makes you a smoother rider. For
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah, it totally does. You know, it's racing is forgiving, if you will.
Mhm.
Not always forgiving because you're going very fast, but like from a landing standpoint, when you're talking about the trails, there's a win or a lose line.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like a
definitely.
finish line. Like
Yeah.
you can only veer off that thing a little bit, or else you're in a danger zone. You know what I mean? So it helps you hone those skills a lot.
So, do you have anyone that you'd like to give a special thanks to?
I'll start with the obvious, which is my wife. She's put up with a lot of stuff for a lot of years. We've been together since she was a sophomore and I was 2 years out of high school. But aside from that, Rick and Jess at Standard are more than sponsors. They're family. They have been for years at this point. Nate was a great dude, and on his word, Rick helped me out with my first bike, and since then he's always had my back no matter what, no matter if I stopped or came back or whatever. They always had my back, and without that, there's definitely times that I had taken breaks that I don't know that I would have come back to racing if I didn't have that kind of support or people that were really cool to feel family with. And then from getting started would really just be Cheyenne Racing and the Wilsek family. Joe and Jan did more for me as a youth that had a hard time, and my mom was struggling as a single mom and couldn't give lots of stuff and wanted to give more. And I had the bike and I had the chance to get to the track, but what they really did is they let me see that there was something so much bigger than just having fun racing. Like I could actually chase this on a national level. And they put lots of their hard-earned money into me and several other people. I would never say it was just me. Like they had a whole group of us that were like their family, but without them as a catalyst, I probably would have been out of BMX by the time I graduated high school, to be brutally honest. Like that was because just before that, in those early high school years, is when they took me in and were just taking us everywhere. And, these are the nationals we're going to. Like, I don't worry about it. We're going. And they did so much. And without seeing that as the possibility and knowing that it was out there, that there was bigger, like, I don't know that I would have kept with it. So
That's
big
awesome.
shout out to them. I mean, I still talk to Jan here and there. I talk to Heather and Kit, and Joe has passed away. He had a heart attack a few years back, but without them, I don't know that I'd still be racing. I'd probably still be riding, but I don't know that I ever would have actually pursued racing the way that I did.
Right. And man, I understand. Like I could definitely see how that helps someone stay in it, or could let someone fall out. Because like I had the same issue. Like I didn't end up getting the chance to go to the nationals and stuff. Like I just, like as I said, last year started going, and like I definitely could see how that could cause someone to like probably want to like fall out or not. Like I ended up being able to get through it okay, but like but it was through the like thoughts of like I know it's there and I just have to get there.
Yeah,
And
there's a definite point where you got to make that decision.
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to?
Yeah,
Do I really want to try to pursue this, or am I just done with this? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
and like I just finally got like a good job that's like paying pretty good, like staying stable and like allowing me to do all the traveling I want to do, and like that's super awesome. That I'm finally getting able to get like a taste of all that.
Oh yeah. I was, like I said, absolutely. If anybody could say one person, one thing, the one person that it would be Joe and Jan. It just like without them, I don't know that I would have even known that was the possibility. You know what I mean? Like you're you got this going on and you're getting there, but like when we were back then, not having all the national exposure and all, like nowadays there's so many races. There's like it's flooded. It's very overwhelming. It just, but back then it wasn't like the nationals were this other thing, and it was very, very humbling that somebody was willing to allow me to experience where, because if I was left to your vices to have to pay for it at the time, I don't know that I would be you and having one of these plates. You know what I'm saying? Like they definitely made my racing career.
It's super grateful for
Yeah.
those people.
And that's one of the biggest things that I tell anybody. Be grateful for all the little wins that you have. Like,
Mhm.
not everything's going to be a home run. Not everything's going to be knocked out of the park. But the
Mhm.
only way that you're going to get to those big goals is to appreciate those little steps that get you there. So
Yeah.
that was my first step, and very grateful.
Yeah. And talk about appreciation. We want to show appreciation to somebody that came to Rockford BMX and befriended a bunch of people. His name is Brandon Knoll. He actually needs a heart transplant. And we're going to, as soon as we do know something about a GoFundMe or something like that, we will put it on our page. So if you do want to donate, you can go ahead and do that. But we want to make a shout out to him. Just stay strong, bud.
Sure.
And, just
We'd like to wish you well.
yeah. I mean, just stick in there. We're all hoping for you for the best, and so just wanted to make a shout out to you, bud. And with that being said, just go ahead and give our page a like the notification, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like our page, comment, anything like that. So we'll talk to you guys next time.
Riders ready to watch the